Hey guys, it's Jane. I'm back. It's babbles time, so let's get into it. This week's topic is about anti-heroes, favourite anti-heroes. Anti-heroes are a bit tricky. I've thought a little bit about what is actually meant by that because there are a few different definitions floating around. For my money, an anti-hero is a protagonist who does not have some or all of the standard heroic traits and yet still functions in the story as a hero. That is, that you're kind of rooting for them, and that should they win through, the end result will be a positive gain for the situation. This distinguishes them from a villain protagonist who, even though you may feel sympathetic towards them, you kind of really don't want them to win. Before we get into my list, I'm just going to, for absolute no reason, completely unconnected, mention that the second series of Jessica Jones is opening on Netflix later this week, which is just possible I'm slightly excited about. But, you know, that's not about books, so let's get into the books. The first sort of type of heroic quality that is often subverted by anti-heroes is their physical prowess. And one anti-hero that I have chosen because of this is Millie from the Arcadia Project books. Now, I actually mentioned these books last week when I was talking about urban fantasies. She's an anti-hero because she is vulnerable. She's physically really vulnerable. And it's not just her like appendages, her brain is actually working against her. She's also unreliable and does some like not super great things, and yet we're still rooting for her. On the other side of the coin, really, I've chosen Nyx from the Beldame Apocrypha. Nyx is a beldame. She's a bounty hunter, and she's lethal. She's completely lethal. She's also uncompromising and really quite scary. She's her loyalty is to herself, and only really kind of to others in as much as that kind of benefits her. She's also quite self-destructive, and almost to the point of being monstrous at in certain respects. You don't want to get on a bad side, and she has a lot of bad side, but if you've read the books, you understand that despite all these flaws, she's still functioning as the hero. Is an amazingly compelling character. For those of you who haven't read these books, there's actually a collection of short stories that Kameron's written about Nyx that's coming out later this year. So maybe that's something you might want to think about picking up and getting a taste for Nyxnissa. Another part of the hero sort of qualities is that sense of honour and protecting others, and being at one with the truth and stuff. And I've picked two other anti-heroes who undermine this sort of heroic sort of ideal. The first is Crisjen Avasarala from the Expanse books. By rights, she should be an entirely unsympathetic character. Crisjen is a foul-mouthed political power broker who knows where the bodies are buried and doesn't have any trouble doing people over as a result. Crisjen is also one of my favourite characters in all the books, and there are good reasons for that. On another side, again, I've chosen Murderbot from Martha Wells. The first novella, All Systems Red, was out last year and is on the shortlist for the BookTube SFF Award, so I hope everybody's planning on reading it. The second book, Artificial Condition, is out May 8. Murderbot is in some ways a love child of the great grandma of science fiction, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's monster. She's this sort of security bot who contains sort of organic material. Which is kind of creepy. But unlike Frankenstein's monster, who is arguably the most humane character from that book. Murderbot is a misanthrope. She just doesn't like people. She doesn't hate people. She's not out to get people, but she just doesn't like people. And fundamentally, she just wants to be left alone. And that makes her a really interesting anti-hero in those stories. The final one that I've chosen is kind of a combination of all of these sorts of threads. She is the most sympathetic, unsympathetic character that I think I've ever read. That's Essun from the Broken Earth series. I'm starting with 5th season, going on to Obelisk Gate, finishing up with The Stone Sky. For people that have not read these books, there are spoilerish reasons why I can't say much more about Essun. But for those of you who have read them, you may be interested to know that Jemisin has written that the structure of the first book is actually largely a product of her desire to make Essun sympathetic, despite the complicated nature of her character. And for my money, it totally worked. So if you have not read it, you owe it to yourself to go and have a look at the Broken Earth series. So that's who I've got to suggest. I would love to hear what you guys think if you've read any of these books, how you feel about these characters, who your favourite anti-heroes are. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!